just in case they're listening, so they can start the camera. Sorry. Good afternoon. We will call our February 10th Safety and Security meeting to order. I want to welcome those of y'all who are listening here and online, and also want to welcome our County Manager, Mr. Ellis, and Deputy County Manager, Ms. Lucas, for joining us today. At this point, I will entertain a motion to approve the November 5th meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second. So there's a motion by Vice Chair Hershey to approve the minutes. It's been properly seconded by Mr. Hegarty. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the adoption of the minutes, let it be known by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The ayes have it. The minutes pass unanimously. I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Scott, to get us started.
And with my normal change, I'll try to stand when I present if you don't mind.
That was great.
All right, so welcome everybody to our committee meeting today, and welcome our special guests that are here. We will be going over, just to set the table, give you a little bit of context and some intent of what we'd like to talk about today. Back in 2024, the Wake County Commissioners and Board of Education had a joint meeting to deepen our understanding of the district's safety and security measures, and today we'd like to continue that work and update you on some things that we've been doing since then. So our intent is to provide you a status update on those security measures and provide additional information about some security measures that we look for in the future. Some of that will probably, most of that will probably happen in our closed session part of the meeting for today. And we'll talk a little bit about our collaboration between Wake County Emergency Management and the Wake County Public School System. So specific, our desired outcome I want you to walk away with today is I'm going to give you an update on what we talked about in the past in 2024 and update you on those specific security measures that we put in place. I'm going to provide you an overview on the standard response protocol. So for our VIP guests, it's probably the first time you all have heard that. Some of the board members have already heard it, but it's one of those things about anytime I get the opportunity, I'd like to try and push that forward. And then I'll go over a little bit about the collaboration between Wake County Emergency Management and the school district when we do our emergency shelters for the community. So let's start first with our current physical security infrastructure and project status. This was a slide that you were shown back in 2024 that was in our joint meeting, and things that we were thinking about bringing forward or working on bringing forward. Those things are our event spectator badge. We're just in infancy of trying to bring that forward. We were just starting to talking about the See Something, Say Something anonymous reporting application. We were working with, as part of the Wave mobile app, staff emergency communication upgrades, and there were some security infrastructure projects that, again, we'll do more of that in the closed session, but that we're also talking about. So this is what we talked about that was coming down the pipe in 2024. So what I'd like to do now is just tell you a little bit about what exactly we've done with some of those. So the high school spectator event bag rules, that is complete and active. That's been going on. So all of our football games, for example, in alignment with what a lot of our larger venues around the county are doing, specifically like Carolina Hurricanes game. If you ever go to those, you know that you have to bring a clear bag to those events. So we're kind of mimicking that, and I think that's going to be a standard across the state for a lot of districts when it comes to athletic events. So we have our high school event bag rules are complete. That's active. The See Something, Say Something application from St. Hope Promise, we were working on getting that off the ground. That was a very big lift for us, so that's out there now. So if you didn't know what that was, that's an anonymous reporting application that students can, well, let me back up. So we had a tip line before, but it was a call thing. And young people today don't typically call with information. They love to text. So this gives them that ability to text us information anonymously. It will go down to a call center. It comes back up to us. Students can provide any type of information that's going on their campus. We get a lot of mental health things that come through there. We get school violence things that come through there. Tips on, I saw a kid, vaping in the bathrooms. Any type of thing that they want to report anonymously, they can do that. And this gives them the avenue to do that. We then follow up with law enforcement as needed on specific threats that may come through. The See Something, Say Something application. And that's provided to us through the state too, so we don't have to pay for it. Staff emergency communications upgrades in progress and ongoing, and that's going to, I'm going to tie that a little bit into this Wave Panic Alert thing, so just put a pin in that for just a second. Our security infrastructure stuff is in the planning stages, and again, that's a lot of stuff that we're going to talk about in the closed session, so I want to hold that one as well as a pin. So the Rave Panic Alert, and tying in with staff emergency communications, the Rave Panic Alert is something that we were trying to launch back in 2024. That's now up and running. Actually, it just went off a few minutes ago because we're running a drill at 1 o'clock today. I think we're running 2 of those, aren't we, Keith? So there's 2 drills that are running right now where we're using Rave. So the neat thing about Rave, it gives us, it's a panic alert application you put on your phone that several staff people have. So if they're in a building and something happens and they need to call for help, they can hit that button. It hits local law enforcement, so it will go, at the time they hit it, it's going to send a message to Raleigh Wake 911 Center, telling them where they are. It's a geofence to the school. It also hits us here at the district office. Upstairs, we have a command center that if an emergency happens, we can then pull up a camera that shows us where that person activated it on the property. The very cool thing about the Panic Alert is a lot more than just hitting a button and calling for help. We can actually go through that app, and let's say this is our building and I hit it right now. We can communicate with the person who individually hit it, and that's the emergency communication upgrade that I was wanting to talk about. So we're able to go direct to that person, and they can two-way communicate with us through text, so they don't have to talk on the phone. So if they're in a place where they don't want to be heard, they can simply text us. So I'm looking out the window, I see this, I see that. When they communicate with us, not only do we see it here at the district office, but the Raleigh Wake 911 Center will see the exact same thing. So when the police are responding to the school, any information that we can get, it's live time between the 3 of us, the person at the school, here at the district office, as well as the 911 responding center, sees all of that information. The Rave Panic Alert, I think, is a leaps and bounds game changer for us as it comes to doing emergency response. It also does not only the active shooter things, but it could do, and it does do things like medical emergency. Kid playing soccer on the field hurt themselves, and they don't need the police coming, they need the medical assistance. There's a button specific on the app that will call medical personnel. It also can be used just inside the school for there's a staff assist function where if I'm just a principal and I need to shoot something out to my admin team, I can do that and it won't disrupt anybody else outside the building. So it does a lot of things other than just call for help. So again, great product, it's complete, it's active. Again, we're using it right now. At this minute, we're doing 2 drills at a high school, and to help build that muscle memory with our staff, we're utilizing in every drill that we do. So every time we do a lockdown drill, we're encouraging schools to do this. I think that in talking with other districts that have the same product, it will gain in popularity the more that staff uses it. So that's why part of getting them to muscle memorize that is using it for the drills that we're having. All right, so let's talk about some future security infrastructure enhancements. This slide I put in here because this is, before I tell you these are things that we could do, I want you to also know that these are things that could stay in the way. Not that they are, but it's just that if we want to do something, a big project that's down the road that takes a long time to implement, these are some things that could run into us. So there's always a financial impact, right? There's always funding streams, and if grant opportunities start to slow down, some of the things that we do, whether it's buying radios or any type of infrastructure things might be paid for with a grant. Well, if those grants start to dry up, then that will affect our ability to do some things. There's always a fluctuation in cost. There could be a tariff situation or a tax situation that causes products to go up in price that changes the dynamic of how well we can put out a large-scale product. There could be a policy thing. There could be some type of unfunded legislative mandate that says you must do this, and then that's going to tie us back to our financial piece, where if it's something that we have to do but we don't have funding for, we've got to go find the funding for, which can slow down how fast we can implement something. So again, these are just things that could, I want to emphasize that, could hamper some of the things I want to talk about in the next slide. So it's not that these things are happening, I just want you to keep that in your mind as we say we can roll out this product or this feature, these things are always in the back of our mind. So some things that we could be doing and some things that we are doing, there's installation of door contacts and cameras, and we're going to do a little bit deeper dive as well with that and some other things that you're going to hear that are physical security infrastructure changes that we'd like to talk about in the closed session. Additional fencing, and this isn't fencing of entire campuses. These are things like if we find that there is a a pond near a school that we'd like to put some safety fencing around. We've discussed that with the board previously. Those are things that we might be looking at. Weapon detection systems, we have some of those. We're looking to get some more of them eventually. We use them in a lot of our athletic games at random. You'll utilize your clear bag procedure, and you might also have a weapon detection unit at a football, large rivalry type football game or a large basketball event. Additional security staff, we're always looking for ways that we can include more staff, and that's really going to tie into our real-time security center that I'd like to one day get to. We've got some plans out there to kind of work towards getting that. We've got some pieces of it together, but it really needs to be more robust than just what we have right now with our command center. Additional training for staff and students. We're going to talk about some of our new emergency response procedures in a minute. Just this morning, I was in a meeting where we were updated on training modules that are getting ready to come out towards the community. They'll be going out to staff, they'll be going out to students, and all that training is for our new emergency response procedures that I'm getting ready to talk about in a second. And I've been wanting to reassess our district security structures and practices for some time, and that's one of those things where a grant was paid for it in 2019. That particular grant just doesn't exist anymore, but we're going to be looking for a grant opportunity, hopefully, to come back in. We did an assessment in 2019 where we allowed a third-party vendor to come in. They assessed every single thing related to security. We gave them access to every campus, every door, every lock, every building. They provide a very comprehensive assessment to us. We'd like to go, now that was setting kind of our benchmark, and now we want to bring them back in to see where we've made some gains and any other things we might need to bring forward that they may indicate in their assessment. All right, moving on, we'd like to talk about our standard response protocol. And this is going to be probably one of the bigger lists that we've done in this district in a long time. Everyone knows what our code red, code yellows are. You hear it in the media all the time. So for our guests that are here, I want to just quickly go through what we have in place and kind of what we're going to do a little bit of why. So this is what we currently have. And this is what you've heard in the past: the code yellow, the code red, the code green. The yellow, and I can go through every bit of it, it's just locking out and securing the outside of the campus, making sure that whatever's out there stays out there and doesn't come into our building. The code red is the classic lockdown thing that you've heard, where there's a threat that's on the property, directed at the school, or in the building. That's where you get all the kids in the classroom, lock the door, you hide, turn the lights off, and that thing. And then whenever it's done, whatever either one of the code red or code yellow has happened, we have a code green, which is our way of saying that it's all clear. We also have our fire alarm, which is basically if we need to dump a building, that's the only thing we've got. We don't really have a standardized process. It's if I need everybody to leave, I pull the fire alarm and you leave. Our severe weather alert, that's typically your classic shelter in place for a tornado. And again, if once either one of those conditions are met, then we do our code green so everything is clear. So again, that's what we've had in place for many, many years. Like many years, predating me for a while. So why do we want to change any of that stuff? So the standard response protocol allows for more flexibility in managing emergencies than the other ones. The other model is very kind of specific to what it's used for, and it doesn't have a whole lot of steps to it. But emergencies and situations that affect schools vary. It's not just the classic, it's the active assailant thing. There's a lot of different things where you could have to take some type of protective action in school, and our current model is really just not an all-hazards approach. It aligns with recommendations that were in that assessment that I mentioned before. They mentioned that you all need to move away from using this coded language. Codes and numbers and coded frequencies and language and things, that's all old school stuff that's not used anymore. Plain speak is what law enforcement first responders use now. So the standard response protocol goes in that way, and it also is supported by our strategic plan. So I have our citation here of where you can find how the strategic plan is supporting this. So let's talk about a few characteristics of the standard response protocol. It's NIM compliant, again, in that plain language speak. If I tell you, and you don't work in our environment, this building, Crossroads, is down to code red, and you don't work here, you probably don't know what that means or what you need to do. You just know that something's going on, you need to take action, but you don't know what that is. Plain language tells you a specific action word that you're going to be easily understand the action that goes behind it. provides an all-hazards approach to emergency response. And again, that's this standard response protocol. I'm going to walk you through how that can work. You can apply it to a lot of different things versus just the classic active assailant, which is what our current policies and procedures do. It provides an action step between the code red and code yellow. So if I can back up really quickly here. So you see we have this code red and code yellow, right? And there's nothing in between it. So it's either, you're either all in, locked down in code red, hiding in the corner, or, you know, code yellow is you're not able to go outside the building, but there's nothing really in between. Well, as I mentioned before, you can have circumstances and emergencies that will require you to do something that's in between, and it may not be keeping everyone locked down in the corner of a classroom with the lights out, thinking that the world's going to end. So we needed something that's got the flexibility to do something that's in between these two. And that's what this standard response protocol, and again, I'm going to walk you through how that works and how it's going to benefit our students and staff. And it's quickly becoming school security best practice. I speak at national and state level conferences, and there are tons of districts, not only in the state of North Carolina, but all across the country that are going to this standard response protocol. Not only are they using it for their emergency response procedures, there are companies like the RAVE product that we have that are implementing and using the standard response protocol language is getting inserted into these products. RAVE is doing it, several other products are starting to adopt this language. And I do believe that it's going to be one of those things where it's going to take over a lot of places. More and more districts, every time I go to these conferences, they talk about how they're changing and getting away from they're using numbers and codes and things, and they need something that's plain speak, and this is what they're going to. All right, so the building blocks of the standard response protocol, these are the 5 things. I'm going to walk you through really the first 3 so you kind of get an understanding of what they do and how they work and why, and it'll probably be a little bit more clear as to why we're using them. Don't worry about the colors. The colors are just their marketing thing, but these are the icons of those building blocks. So let's walk through, I'll give you the definition and we'll walk through like a quick scenario of how these things work. So secure is similar to our code yellow. Secure just means just that. And we'll use this Crossroads building as our example. Secure means that there's some type of something happening in this area, and we just want to keep whatever that is out of the building, so we want to make sure all our doors are locked on the outside of the building. Hold, and this is the new thing, this is kind of that in-between the code yellow, code red thing I was talking about, is a new action for WCPSS, and it keeps students in classrooms. So you don't have to just say, we need to keep kids in the classroom. Currently, the only way we can do that is to stay in a code red for as long as we need to for whatever reason, and that's not something that we find to be productive. Lockdown is similar to our code red. That's your classic, lock the door of the classroom, everybody gets in the corner, turn the lights off. Evacuation, and that's just a term that is used to get occupants out of the building. So where before, the only thing that we're doing is pulling a fire alarm. Well, that's not necessarily the best way to get people to leave a building. So here, we'll have the ability to tell folks to leave and not just have pulling a fire alarm. The shelter, and that again is used to get occupants into a shelter-in-place condition, and that's your classic, is a tornado drill or some type of weather event happening on the outside of the building. Oops. So let me walk you through real quick how that would work. So again, we're going to use this building as our example. And let's say that there was a gas station across the street that gets robbed. Well, the gas station across the street gets robbed and the suspect ran across the street. The only thing they're doing is they're running in our direction. So we want to tell all of our staff and students, hey, you need to stay inside the building. So I would simply come over the intercom if I'm the principal, and I could say, students and staff, we're in a secure status at this time. So that tells you that there's something in the community, not directly at the school, but something in the community is going on where we don't want you going outside the building, right? Now, let's say that same suspect has come across the street and somehow someone saw them run inside this building. Well, now the threat is inside the building. Well, if it's inside the building, then we're going to need to move to a lockdown. So I would say students and staff, now we're going to have a lockdown situation. Not a code red, it's a lockdown. So you know now that you need to go ahead and close your doors, lock them, and stay inside. Now, before that lockdown happens, if we knew that the suspect ran onto the property, but I just wanted everyone to stay, and I was talking about that something between the yellow, red, or something between the secure and lockdown, that's where that hold comes in. From the secure perspective, I could then say, students and staff, we're in a hold status at this time. So if I'm the teacher, instead of us having to go currently lock down hard and everybody gets in the corner, I hear, oh, we're on a hold, that means that this is our classroom. No one needs to go outside the classroom. We're just trying to keep the hallways all empty. Because we know that there's something possibly that could move us very quickly to a true lockdown. But right now, we're just going to stay in our classroom, we're going to keep the door closed, but we can still teach. We can keep the lights on. We can still continue to do what we're doing, but it keeps the inside of the building clear so that if law enforcement or admin need to be looking for something or someone, they can do that without students being outside in the hallways. The other nice thing you can use this for, as I was saying before, is not just an act of violence. We could use it for something else. The kid fell in the stairwell and hurt themselves, and they needed medical attention. But we don't need the bell ringing, and then all of us are walking out into the hallway where this kid is needing some assistance. So what we could do is the principal could come on and say, students and staff, we're in a hold situation. We stay in here, the bell rings, dismissed, but we haven't been cleared, so we stay in here. First responders come onto the property, there's a kid that fell down the stairs, hurt their ankle, they need to transport them. So they can do what they need to do without all of us walking out into the hallway, being exposed to whatever's out there. It's not an emergency, it's not an act of violence, it's just a means to keep us in here without, in our current world, call a code red to lock down, that way no one goes out in the hallway. We don't need to put that fear and fright in people when it's someone just fell downstairs. So this gives us something different to do multiple things with versus what we have right now. The evacuation is just that. It could be, it may not be a fire, it could be a gas leak. And we don't need to create the panic, but we do need people to leave the building. Instead of me pulling a fire alarm, where I can come over to the intercom and say, students and staff, at this time we need to evacuate to your safe places outside or to your assembly areas outside. And our assembly area for this room might be that parking lot. So instead of someone pulling a fire alarm, creating, again, a lot of panic, you hear where we need to go. I tell you we need to evacuate to your area. I'm the teacher, I know it's in this parking lot. We all get up, we walk out to the parking lot, and it's not this panic thing with bells and whistles and lights screaming at us. And the shelter is the exact same thing. We could say that this, students and staff, we need to shelter in our safe places at this time. Again, the classic reason that you would be doing that is there's a tornado that spun up in, we're in April or May, and it's the same thing we all did as when we were kids. We'd go into the stairwell or into the hallway and get in our tornado safe spaces, assume the position, and when it's clear, you hear the students and staff, we're all clear at this time. And that's different than dropping all these codes and numbers and all that other stuff, where again, if you're visiting a school, you may not know any of that stuff. So this is giving you plain speak in a word, followed by direction. Lockdown, lights out. Secure, lock the door. Now, that last part, I'd like to talk a little bit about our emergency shelters in collaboration with Wake County Emergency Management. So Wake County Emergency Management and the Wake County Public School System have been partners for 3 years. I've been here 19 years and have worked with them several times. They are cannot speak highly enough about Wake County Emergency Management, how well and how helpful they are to anything that we need. So they work with us to identify several emergency shelter locations throughout the county. And I'm not sure when that partnership exactly started, but for those of you that have been around a while, this is probably my only war story. I'll tell you, when I first got here, there was a plant fire in Apex, an EQ plant explosion that happened. And we upfitted these shelters really at the spur of the moment that were not really designed to be shelters. I was at one of the elementary schools in Apex that night. It was not nearly as smooth as some of the things that we've done in the past. And so this collaboration between us has been a great thing because it allows us now to have a plan to execute it and to keep the community safe. So what type of things would cause us to open a shelter, right? So as we all just saw the winter weather, we did have a shelter open twice this past week for that. Hurricanes, and it's not, this is the beauty of this collaboration. It's not just hurricane impacts that could happen here in Wake County. I think it was Matthew, if I'm remembering my storms correctly, where we eventually had to shelter people that were on the coast were coming back here to Wake to be sheltered. Storm wasn't coming here, but they needed somewhere to go, and we activated several shelters throughout the county at that time. And Wake County Emergency Management, again, is so easy to work with in doing that. Emergency shelter for the Sharon Harris Nuclear Power Plant. One of our schools serves as a decontamination center for that specific emergency, and there's all type of FEMA stuff that they do in collaboration with us and Wake County Emergency Management. If there was something that happened at Sharon Harris, we drill on it every 2 years. Huge setup, but Wake County Emergency Management works with us, sets all that up, and walks us through everything we need to do. Or again, if there's any large-scale emergency where citizens would need to seek shelter for safety, and that's that classic, again, there was a storm coming and the coast needs to come inland, we're able to take them in our shelter locations. And these are just those locations. There's several high schools, and then Garner High School is that location that's used as a detention center for Sharon Harris. So that you can see the shelters kind of spread out. Typically, when we activate that, Wake County Emergency Management will call, let us know if they need to open a shelter. They've already got pre-positioned supplies. They drop them off at the school. They come in, bring all their staff. They set everything up. I can tell you that I worked the last 2 shelters that we had last weekend. I cannot tell you how many citizens came that were so thankful that they could get out of that cold and come to, at this particular last 2 shelter times we did it at Southeast Raleigh High School. We had one night over 100 people in there. And they came and stayed the night. They had kids, we had elderly people, we had all kinds of folks that came, and they were so thankful that we had heat, food, and a nice place for them to take a shower, and this is what Wake EM does for us. It's setting all that up. It's not a burden to the district at all. We partner with them by providing our cafeteria staff was there. We cooked food for everyone. We had a couple staff members that were running around playing with kids in the cafeteria when I got there. And then they staff the rest of the positions that are there. They provide security along with our staff. And it's a great service to the community. So I just want to make sure that everyone at this table knew about that collaboration, how much people, when I was there this past weekend and the weekend before last, appreciated what happened. And with that, I'll be happy to entertain any questions or comments anyone may have.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Scott, for walking through this presentation with us. And just to be consistent, I know we shared some of this information during the mayor's roundtable, so our mayors and municipalities could be aware of some of the changes that are taking place. And we're grateful to have the county leadership here, so therefore all of us are aligned on some of the high-level changes that will be taking place and that are taking place as we enter into the school. So I see Vice Chair Hershey has a question, and then we'll just go around and see if others have.
Comment first, thank you for having shelters open. I'll just leave it at that, but thank you to the county and I appreciate all the working together. You mentioned rave and sporting events, and you brought up the soccer, that you could use rave and you could hit a button and it contacts like an ambulance service or something, and you mentioned the soccer game, right?
No, I don't think I mentioned soccer game, but you can use it's active anytime. So you could use
Like
it.
using rave for...
Maybe I misspoke, but yeah, you could. If your question is, can you use it during an athletic event? That answer is yes.
Okay, so I want to make sure that, because when we open like Morrisville High School, we're going to have sporting events not on campus. And if we're using it for beyond emergency use that you were kind of going through here with lockdowns and such, that we have a good protocol in place connecting, before people start using it to call for emergency services, that there's protocol in place with athletic trainers and, kind of talking with Darren Coe for athletic administrators, athletic directors. So that's all smooth, because I could feel like that could get, as someone who is around sports all the time and on fields, and there are sometimes there are places where there are no athletic trainers. I just want to make sure there's a good protocol in place in Wake County for when that is activated.
Okay. Just to give you a little background how the app works, it's geofenced to all of our property. So let's just say, and I'm not sure where, let's say Morrisville doesn't have a football stadium, but they're going to use Sanderson Stadium for whatever reason. that property, all of Wake County Public Schools property is already geofenced and stuck into the application. So if Morrisville High School is playing there and there was an emergency of any type, anyone that's inside that geofence that hits a button is already there. The only way that it would be a challenge would be if Morrisville High School somehow was using Carter Finley Stadium to play their football games.
Well, they're going to be using USA Baseball, right? And so they're going to be off campus considerably, so that.
Yeah, so I'll have to
Just
talk to
announce that
Darren
thing, but
Coe
just
to
make
find out
sure
where
we're-
those locations are, and then it's just a
Okay.
matter of setting a geofence on whatever property that is.
Got it.
I just he's got to tell me what they
So
are.
it sounds like there just needs to be training for every person across the board, not just under two athletic directors and our sports folks, but making sure that every WCPSS employee that chooses to use the app or chooses to, follow another, they choose not to use the app, still needs to be some training. If they choose to use the app, just make sure they're trained. That's right.
I was just simply going to add to Mr. Vice Chair Hershey's point that I think with Morrisville, I think there's maybe 3 different off-campus sites where we have interlocal agreements with the town of Cary or the town of Morrisville for those athletic activities. And I know that there's some other schools that might have swim teams that use like local Ys or things like that. So they're regular school-sponsored activities with school personnel and students, but they are off the traditional campus, so.
I would definitely have a conversation with Darren Coe.
Yes, thank you. Question about the standard response protocol. I really appreciate the whole the aspect of having that kind of distinct piece of it. And you're saying that the teachers can continue their classes during that time. Is that correct? So how? I guess it's maybe part of the training process, but I mean, you want the teachers to be able to continue doing the teaching, but then also, how would you apprise them of any kind of change in development, change in circumstances, such that, they're not distracted by constant, alerts, whatever, but also be, able to stay aware of what's going on.
Okay, so let me give you 2 pieces of information that may answer that question. So first, how they can move from one stage of their standard response protocol to the next. If it was a threat that was not directed at the school, that puts us in that secure status. If they're looking for someone and they possibly want to look for them in the building, or as I gave the example, someone just getting hurt, that information is going to just come through as a regular announcement of the PA system. It's not something that's going to ding their phone, it's not going to bother them. It'll be going to the entire building because we want to make sure everyone is hearing the same thing. So if it's the example of a kid fell in the hallway or fell down the stairs and hurt themselves, or we just didn't want kids going out there, all you would hear with the intercom is just that students and staff, we're in a hold situation at this time, please hold your classrooms. And they typically are going to announce that twice, so if I'm teaching and I didn't catch all of it, they announce it a second time, so I hear it, and I would just say, okay, students, staff, we're going to stay in here, bell's rung, we're not leaving, we're going to continue talking about math or whatever class it is. The Rave app, when it's used, those are the folks that have it. We want to be communicating if we're having to disrupt one person. If it's in this classroom, and let's say the superintendent is the person who hit the button, he's the only one that I'm going to be communicating with. It won't be the rest of the all. So it's only going to be disrupting his phone and not everyone else. So I hope that kind of answers how we're trying. If there's an emergency on the school property, though, we want to make sure everyone is hearing the initial announcement. So they're all going to get that at one time. And then that individual communication is going to be with the person who actually has information to share with us.
Is the Rave app still opt-in?
Yes.
Are you still seeing uptick?
Absolutely. Happens all the time. So to what Ms. Evans is asking about for our special guests is the app is, it's an opt-in because we can't mandate that staff put applications on their personal devices. When I've spoken with other districts that have had this before us, I was always asking, how do you get staff to buy in and put something on their phone? Well, what has been happening as we run drills, and let's imagine that all of us at this table are the people and everyone on this side of the room has it, and everyone on this side of the room does not have the app. Something happens in the building, all of them are going to know about it. You all will not. Well, when we're talking, someone's going to eventually talk to Ms. Evans, go, how'd you know that this was going on? Oh, I got the app. Well, what do you think the next thing you're going to do is? You're going to go download the app. And so every school that we've run drills in, we've seen the compliance rate of people that are wanting to get the app goes up every single time. And it just, the larger districts I've talked to that have been using it, they've told me it's taken them usually about a year or two before they see that really big jump. And it's not only the drills that get your attention, but once an actual event has happened and a bunch of the staff do not know what happened, and then there's a select few that did know, and when they find out, the do not knows, find out how the knows knew, then that's when it's, oh, okay, I need to go ahead and do this. But yes, that's kind of how it's selling itself, and I knew that it would eventually happen that way, and that trend has been happening of late.
Thank you.
Any final comments or concerns before we head into closed session? Or, oh yes, County Manager Ellis?
I just want to let you guys know, we appreciate the partnership with the school system around the emergency shelters. Your food and nutrition staff and your building maintenance staff were just very helpful. They're helpful all the times, but especially during this last storm, they were tremendous. So just want to thank you for that.
And I wanted to add, yes, thank you for that partnership. One of the things that I wanted to make sure that whoever your audience is aware is that for things at those shelters, like generators, to make sure those schools can be operating, that is money that comes from the county's dollars. It does not come from the school CIP. So when those need to be replaced or upgraded, that is a county responsibility that we take on. And the other thing I wanted to kind of ask you, it's a little bit of a softball, but again, for the audience, whether it's the raised panic button system or additional security staff, that the state does not provide much funding for any of that. That, you know, we all really value the safety and security of our students and our employees working at the school system, but that falls a lot on the county as a responsibility because of the state's lack of funding. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
And how-
Before we go into close, I would want to just extend to you all that the Wake County Emergency Management Group cannot be better to work with. They are so helpful. Director Creighton and his, I think Darshan Patel is their assistant. They are, anytime we need something, they are there for us. And as one looks, you know, they are a dream team to work with. So I really appreciate everything they did to help us with the shelters we did this past couple of weeks.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just want to thank the county for their continued partnership. I think this just shows that, you know, we are one of the lucky, fortunate districts who have such strong collaboration, not just with our county elected leaders, but with county staff as well. And so grateful for the collaborations and partnerships as we, you know, try to deal with the hands that has been dealt to us. Some unfunded mandates from the General Assembly and, you know, the constant nuances. But I'll just close by saying, you know, none of us can, it takes all of us to ensure that safety and security is top of mind. I think we can do what's best here at the school, but it takes our community partners, it takes the change in behaviors, which are factors that we can't necessarily control, but having dialogues such as this can hopefully shift folks' mind to say, maybe I need to do a little bit more, maybe I need to put those weapons away and make sure that my kid doesn't have access to it, because it takes all of us to keep our communities safe. So, Dr. Taylor, I'll let you have any final words if you have any.
No, the one thing I'll say is the partnership between the county and the school district when it comes to the shelters, that is a really robust partnership. I can tell you that in many districts, you have to activate an emergency shelter that falls back on the district in terms of paying for the food, paying for the staff. And so when you think about child nutrition, we can use that funding to feed people. So that means it now becomes a responsibility of either the district or the county. And so knowing that there's the partnership that recognizes that emergency management is a county function, but it is the partnership that we share to make it something that's good for our public. And so we definitely appreciate that. And we just appreciate you guys being here to hear some of the things that we can talk about in public and then others that we'll hear in a few moments.
So with that, I'm going to pull up the language that is on assembly. So at this point, I will entertain a motion for us to go into closed session to formulate plans related to the prevention of school violence through the development of emergency plans under North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A, Section A8.
So moved.
There is a motion by Mr. Vice Chair Hershey, seconded by Mr. Hegarty. All in favor of the motion, let it be known by the sign of aye. Aye. Opposed, same signs. The ayes have it. We are in closed session.